Good morning and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for Friday, April 8th, 2022. Dr. Campos?
Good morning, everyone. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer, establishing roll call and quorum. We have President Garcia, Vice President Villegas, President Pro Tem Davis, and Commissioner Corzan. President Garcia, you do have a quorum at this time. Currently, we do have one caller on the line for general public comment. We have no commentary from the Neighborhood Council section. We do have 3 individuals on the line also for items number 1, 2, 3, and 4. In addition to that, President Garcia and commissioners, we did receive 17 email commentaries through our online public comment portal, and that has been distributed to all commissioners this morning. In addition to that, there was 2 separate emails received, one from Council District 11 and one from MRCA, relative to item number 2. Again, those 2 emails have been forwarded to all commissioners for your consideration as well for item number 2.
Yes, thank you. Acknowledged of that. Okay, Dr. Campos, we'll take a public comment first then.
Absolutely. We do have one member from the general public for general public comment, Dr. Tom Williams. If you can please unmute your microphone. The Board of Public Works is now considering general public comment. You will have 2 minutes to speak under this segment. Please go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council, Land Use and Planning Committee. We do appreciate the street services giving notices of street works in various areas. Unfortunately, it only goes to Dr. Campo. So we'd dearly love to have the street services notices of street works be distributed to at least the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and or the Board of Neighborhood Councils, so that they could be distributed to the relevant neighborhood councils. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Was that our last caller, Dr. Campos?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you all. Public comment is now officially closed. Moving on to the approval of the minutes for Friday, March 25th, 2022. Is there a second to my motion to move this item forward, colleagues?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. I'm going to take that as a second.
Second, I'm sorry.
No worries. It's a first by me and a second by Dr. Davis to move the approval of the minutes of Friday, March 25th, 2022 forward.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and start the voting tabulation. We'll start with you, Madam President.
Aye.
Vice President Villegas.
Aye.
President Pro Tem Davis.
Davis, aye.
And Commissioner Corzan.
Aye.
The minutes have been approved. The motion carries unanimous. Madam President, would you like to move this forthwith?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we're going to go a little out of order this time. There's a couple of administrative items that we can handle I would imagine pretty rather quickly, and then we can get into and have more time to get into the some of our tree items that we have callers here for. So thank you for that, everybody that's here on today's meeting. We appreciate your time and your commitment to the city, and so you just bear with us while we go through some administrative items, and then we can get to all the tree items that we have today. So we're going to start with item number 4, Dr. Campos. This is an item for all council districts. This is is Erica here? Erica Flyther?
Yes, she is.
Okay, thanks. So Dr. Campos, we're going to go 4, 5, 3, and then we're going to go 1, 2, and then leave the oral reports at the end. All right. So this is an all-council district. This is item number 4 on today's agenda. This is a request for proposals for an oil well amortization. Oh my God, I'm saying that wrong. Amortization study, recommending the board authorize the executive officer to 1, distribute and release the transmitted RFP to perform an amortization study on existing City of Los Angeles oil wells, subject to any technical corrections prior to its release. 2, evaluate the RFP and submission, select and interview the most qualified proposer or proposers who submits the best and the most responsive proposal. 3. Negotiate any proposed contract with the most responsive proposers subsequent to the receipt and objective review of all proposals submitted in response to the transmitted RFP. And 4. Return to the Board of Public Works for authority to award and execute a contract or contracts with a term period sufficient to complete the proposed project. And I believe we have a caller on the line, Dr. Campos?
Yes, we do. We have one caller on the line for item number 4. If you'd like, we can go ahead and take that commentary.
Yes, please. We'll take it now before the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you. Dr. Tom Williams, if you can please unmute your microphone at this time. The Board of Public Works is considering item number 4. You will have 2 minutes to speak under this item. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Dr. Tom Williams, Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community. We have been through this in Culver City, and the important element is do it right the first time. And one of the problems is that this particular venture for Los Angeles City has implications regarding oil, mineral, and subsurface properties. If they are not included in the amortization of the oil resources, you're going to be sued. So we're quite concerned regarding the document. We would like to help, and I would recommend continuation for 1 week at least and get it right the first time. Because if you isolate the Southern California Gas Company, Playa del Rey gas storage field and its oil wells and the injection wells, you're going to have a real problem with gas supply for the entire southern and western portions of the city of Los Angeles. So there seems to be some issues that could be resolved. We took the county of Los Angeles to court in 2008 regarding some issues with the LA County portion of the Inglewood oil field, and they still have a good community advisory panel meeting once a month, every month, for the last 10 years. So we're quite concerned. We're willing to participate. I can give you review comments. You just give me a track changes version, and I can help. So that's pretty much it. As is, I'd highly recommend not approving the current
2 minutes.
proposal.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Dr. Campos, there's a couple other folks with their hands up, but that might be for the other items. They're just confirming because they have their hands up at this
Yes,
time.
those individuals have their hands up for items number 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Okay, Erica, good morning, and Amanda and Devon. Amanda and Devon, is this your first time here presenting at the board? Well, welcome. Good to see you, and welcome to our department as well. Erica, I know it's not your first time. You're a pro at this, so we're just go ahead.
Well, thank you. Good morning, commissioners. I really appreciate your time today and taking our item early. As you heard, oil is a big issue and it's a concern for the region. So in the board report, I'm just going to walk you through. It talks about some background of oil development, but also the action that has been taken by the state, the county, as well as Culver City on looking at doing amortization and changing the way that we deal with oil drilling. In some cases, oil drilling is no longer happening in some locations or has already been declared a non-conforming land use. So following Council File 170447, in January recently, the City of Los Angeles decided to task the City Planning Department with making oil wells and oil a non-conforming land use. Culver City had done that since the 1960s, so their path has been a little bit different than our path. But the Planning Department is doing that, but this motion also tasked the Office of Petroleum and Natural Gas to do amortization studies, and this is the request is to go out and do an RFP for this. And we are looking at a similar process as to what Culver City did in terms of looking at the wells, looking at the financial value and the return on investment. And that is the process that we are tasked with. And there's a lot of information in the report. It talks about well counts, and a big focus is on the neighborhood drill sites and the CalEnviro screen scores of those neighborhoods. And it's very important for us to realize who is being impacted by the oil production currently. And so it's an important factor in how we determine who is affected by these things. There are environmental justice concerns, as well as concerns about climate change, which is a huge, huge deal, as all of us know. And I guess to go through, we have the objectives, and there's a whole section on project deliverables. And I'd like to have Amanda speak on the scope of work, so you get a chance to hear from her. And Amanda is, again, our Deputy Petroleum Administrator.
Thank you, Erica. As Erica said, I'll provide a quick overview of our proposed amortization study scope of work. We are requesting the consultant create a proposal for an approach to determine the appropriate amortization period or periods for existing oil and gas wells within the city of Los Angeles. The amortization periods may be based on, but not limited to, the life expectancy of the specific oil field, the age of the well, historical data on production, revenues, costs and investment for each well, market values for crude oil and natural gas, and an estimated fair rate of return on capital. As Erica mentioned, drilling in the city of Los Angeles is unique. We have drill wells in drill sites, not in drill sites, near sensitive receptors and in highly populated areas. So we've outlined various approaches for this study in our request for proposal. However, other valid approaches proposed by the consultants will also be considered, and we will rely on the consultants' expertise to suggest the most relevant model, method, and approach for this study. Our outlined approaches include doing a pilot or partial study of many drill sites, starting with completing one active drill site to gauge the time, cost, and implications of the studies. Starting with a sampling of 3 drill sites that are active but have low production to gain a better understanding, and also expediting the process. Starting with the 10 active drill sites that have been identified as being in or around disadvantaged communities or are subjected to high pollution burden, using the CalEnviro screen scores. This not only gauges the time and cost of the study, but also focuses on the environmental justice outcomes that may arise from these studies. And lastly, to simply conduct studies of all 17 drill sites and the remaining non-drill site wells in a concurrent fashion. Again, we will rely on the consultant's expertise to suggest the most relevant approach. The project deliverables that we've outlined include preparing and submitting a draft report for finding conclusions and recommendations in response to the scope of work items within 90 days of the bid award, presenting draft findings with a slide presentation for the Board of Public Work and other relevant city staff, submitting a final report with findings, conclusions, and recommendations, within 30 days of receipt of comments from the Board of Public Works, City Planning Department, and City Attorney, and presenting final findings with slide presentations to executive city staff, Los Angeles Board of Public Works meetings, Los Angeles City Council, and City Council committees as necessary. At this time, I'd like to hand the floor back to Erica, our Petroleum Administrator, for any additional comments.
Thank you. And one area I want to make sure that we read, and this was an omission that Devin caught, is that there is typically in the board report a local business preference program. So I'd like to read this into the record and amend the board report as such. Local business preference program. All proposers are eligible to participate in the local business program by qualifying as local business enterprise. The city shall grant 8% of the total possible evaluation points added to their evaluation score to those proposers who are certified as a local business enterprise. Those proposers who do not qualify as an LBE but identify qualified LBE certified subcontractors to perform work under this RFP will receive a 1% preference up to a maximum of 5% of the total possible evaluation points added to their evaluation score for every 10% of the cost of proposed work to be performed by the certified LBE subcontractors. So I just wanted to read that into the record, and we will amend the board report as needed. To respond to some of the comments that were received from Dr. Tom Williams, so there were some written comments, and they were related to including a glossary of terms. We will certainly provide that. We'll also coordinate with CalGEM on the wells and our well count. So we're working currently with CalGEM as well as with our local fire department and planning department to ensure that we are capturing all wells that will be covered by the forthcoming ordinance written by the city planning department. I don't know if Devin, if you have any other words. Oh, go ahead. One thing I did want to mention was that you might mention this is the 1022 process.
Yes. Hi, good morning, Commissioners. I don't have anything specific to add at the moment, but if you have any questions regarding the actual RFP, I'm happy to answer anything on that matter.
And the 1022 process is pending, and I believe Devin checked recently just this week, and it is not through yet, but our intention is to release this after the 1022 comes through.
Okay, thank you for the petroleum team. Anything else?
We're here to answer your questions.
All right, thank you, Erica. Okay, colleagues, any questions on item number 4? We're doing the raise the hand. Sure,
Yes.
Dr. Davis.
Erica, I had some technical problems in terms of getting all of the data today on the computer in terms of your proposal. However, I still have some questions that you can answer for me. Specifically, what are we proposing to do as it relates to the utilization of our infrastructure of wells in the region? What are we proposing to do here?
Well, currently, the Council File 170447 is going to look at the way that we deal with oil. So currently, drilling is considered to be all right, and so certainly sometimes there are neighborhoods that are next to, sometimes homes directly next to drill sites. After a lot of concerns about health, there was a health report that was done by the office in 2019 that looked at the concerns related to health. There have been many studies that have come out since then, and there are numerous health concerns with living next to drill sites. So the city planning department is now planning to say that it is not a good idea to have drill sites next to residences and other sensitive receptors and sensitive land uses. So as part of that, we are doing studies to see at what point things would not be allowed. So typically when something is determined to be a non-conforming land use, there are 20 years from that time period, and this has happened sometimes with adult bookstores. They'll say 20 years, we decided it's non-conforming, you have 20 years to leave. So these studies would help to justify that time period or potentially shorten it, but we need to see what the studies determine, and that would be looking at if we're following a similar approach to what Culver City did, it would be looking at the return on investment, the types of investments that the oil operators put in, petroleum reserves, potential value and use of the oil in the future, and all of those things, mineral rights, et cetera, would be considered in the studies. So we'd be doing the technical studies, and the planning department would determine when those non-conforming uses will be done. In Culver City, in Culver City, they already had the non-conforming designation on the books. So what their study said is 5 years, but it was 5 years just to remove your equipment. And so they determined that that operator, in their portion of the Inglewood oil field, it was approximately 41 wells, and they said that based on the evidence they did, they have 5 years just to remove their equipment and leave, but they've already made their money, and all the money that they are entitled to. And that was Culver City's approach. We're not sure exactly how it will be. The city of Los Angeles is very complex and very different.
As we look at this issue, as complex as it is on one hand, from a business perspective, it's very clear that you're looking at what the value is in terms of the work that is being done and what revenues have been gained, what will be lost as a result of any potential action to adhere to some of the environmental values we have. My question, certainly clearly hearing the environmental concerns, my question is in terms of trying to better understand the impact of this problem. What contribution do the wells in our region make to the oil supply? If any, what impact do we make? I mean, we have this drilling going on. Tell me what impact, from a business perspective, we make towards the consumption of oil.
Right, that's a good question. So there are approximately 7,500 barrels per day produced in the Los Angeles area. And of those barrels, we pretty much will use whatever we receive. We also import a significant amount of oil from overseas. Some of that is due to the oil characteristics. The oil that's made in the Los Angeles area tends to be heavier crude, and the oil that we bring overseas is lighter. And that's blended together in our local refineries and then produced and made into typically fuel for vehicles and a lot of aviation fuel as well. And so there is some impact, but a lot of it, I believe, I don't have the exact numbers, but it's something closer to 60% or so that is coming from overseas rather than local oil usage. But we are using, whatever we produce, we are using locally. So another question that you're probably thinking of is also there are jobs that are related to these
Yes.
oil production. So we're working with the city of Los Angeles, is joined with a task force with LA County to look at what's called a Just Transition Task Force. And so we're looking at what is going to happen to all of these workers. And so we're trying to make sure that there are going to be equitable choices for them. We recognize that these are good paying jobs. We want to make sure that these people are taken care of even after oil production ceases. So we're working together on the Just Transition Task Force. And so there's a remediation committee, a financial committee, as well as one looking at just the jobs in general and retraining. So we're working together to make sure that these people are not going to be out of a job and out of income.
Okay. Additionally, in that line of thinking, that's on an individual basis, but as we look at a macro perspective in terms of the business owners and those sometimes families that have impact for the oil, what kind of response are we receiving from them as it relates to our concern about the discontinuing of their operation? I know that some families, that this part of the portfolio contributes significantly to their economic profile. What kind of response have we been receiving from those particular constituents as it relates to our dilemma here, as it relates to the work we are exploring?
I believe you're talking about people who own their homes and have mineral rights, and they are compensated for that, so rentals and royalties.
Correct.
So I have not heard from them specifically on this issue, but I think that is something that there needs to be outreach on that as city planning is drafting their ordinance, but seeing what is their income and how will that be impacted in the future.
Right.
It's definitely an area where outreach is needed.
Yeah, had we anticipated in our study that impact upon them in terms of, do we nullify their value, their worth, in terms of the ownership of oil on their property? Does, as a result of the work we're doing, it means that the oil they have on the property means nothing because of the action we take? Is that one of the outcomes of the work that we do in terms of its impact upon those particular constituents, or not? Is it a part of the hypothesis of our study that we look at those particular individuals, and have we figured out whatever the impact is, does it involve any other kind of variables? For example, is there some potential compensation that we will have to endure to those particular constituents if in fact our action has an adverse impact upon their economic worth and value? And I'd love to hear something about that in our discussion as we think about this policy and its implications.
I think that's a very important thing to bring up with planning and make sure that we are looking at those. And we have done a rentals and royalties study in the past, but it was more focused on the revenue that the city itself is needing, but I don't think we've done one overall for all of the royalty owners in the Los Angeles area. So that would be an area for discussion.
Sure, we all are environmentalists, but when you present this kind of emotion to us, it's not about who we are. It's about what the impact of the policy is. And it's also about being comprehensive in that analysis so that we can't miss one critical, important factor in this problem, which is what happens to the economy of those individual citizens who have oil on their property. And are we nullifying their value and their worth? We don't want to die because people are doing oil, but at the same time, being responsible in the capacities that you and I are in, we want to make sure that all of that is a part of the discussion that the board will look at. Because if we also are fair, it might be that that should be a part of the discussion as we present. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Again, really great points. Erica, and you'll get some conversation going around that, I'm sure. Thank you. The Vice President Villegas.
Thank you. Appreciate your report as well. Thank you for all that information. And thank you for your detailed report and just for identifying all of the oil wells by district. It just gives us a better perspective of what we're dealing with. I was wanting to ask, as the city is moving in this direction, it's nothing, new that we're doing. LA County is moving into this kind of a transition as well, as we're seeing with the city of, Culver City as well. And this study is going to be able to give us a little bit more information to help us transition as well. So my question is, as you are putting out this RFP, who will be involved? I don't know if you can share this, but who will be involved in negotiating?
So there are very few firms who are qualified to do this work. Not all of them are in California, so we suspect there will be a lot of firms coming from out of state, potentially from Texas. We are going to do outreach to them. We are also inviting the city planning department to help us as we review the proposals. So they would be able to, as they are going to write the ordinance, they would review that. But in terms of, it's mostly a study of, as Commissioner Davis mentioned, it's mostly a study of the finances and revenue that have been done by the operators. We'd love to work with the operators. We're not sure how much information they'll be willing to provide with us. It might be more coming from the public sector and what information is available through CalGEM, the state's Department of Oil and Gas. But we are going to do a study that will try and be as comprehensive as possible.
Okay, thank you for that. And then just one last question. Are these I'm assuming these are like best management practices in this field currently to do this type of work as you transition?
Right, so the state is looking at just transition as well as so there's Cal EPA's motion to look at that, and some of it is looking at changing the types of fuels, and the local county and the city are working together to look at the transition too. But some of it is looking at repurposing fuels, so instead of being fossil fuels, we're looking at biofuels. There's some various plants that have been transformed. Some of the Phillips 66 and Marathon both have refineries up in Northern California that are now biofuel refineries instead of fossil fuel refineries, recognizing that it's going to be a long time before planes are going to be running on anything other than fossil-like products. There's a recognition that we still need to, along with electric planes and solar power planes. So there's going to be a need for that type of fuel for quite a while. So we're looking at different ways that things can be done, and we are working together.
Wonderful. I appreciate that, and looking forward to this work, as it comes to fruition. And I'm encouraged by having your staff participate in getting more staff to help with this effort. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Vice President Villegas. Commissioner Corson.
Thank you. Just first question for some clarity. The city, through council action and city planning,
like to call Eduardo's.
they've already taken the step to pretty much put us on a timeline to disallow oil and gas production. So this study is really just for us to figure out financial feasibility and the impact on those royalty holders, the refinery, or the production on site, and to do an economic analysis. I mean, the decision to halt this has already been made. This is just about determining the time, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then it does not look into, like, I know you brought up refineries, but this doesn't look into the refinery side of it. just the production from the wells?
That's correct. It's just a production.
Okay. And then, would it be possible for whenever this analysis is done, for you to also share with us the Culver City report, or maybe if that can be shared now? I'd like to see that and just see what to anticipate. And then, and my final question is, this seems like a very specialized field of study, and how many bids or how many participants do you anticipate putting in a bid for a project like this?
That's correct. It's a very specialized field. We expect to have possibly 5 or 6 proposers. We don't expect 10, but we have identified a list of a few who we're going to target and let them know that they qualify to do this type of work and that this is something that is upcoming. As you mentioned, Culver City has done this. There are some studies that we can forward to you that what they've released publicly. We're happy to share that with you so you can see the process that they've went through.
Thank you. Those were my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Corson. Eric, I just have probably more of a technical question. Is there an estimated allocation of funds for the request of proposal that's part of it? Do you mind sharing that?
Certainly. So in the UB budget, there's $3.5 million set aside for this. Just looking at Culver City as an example, they had 41 wells, and they had 10% of the Inglewood oil field. Part of the Inglewood oil field is in LA County, and about 10% of it is in Culver City. They had 41 wells that they analyzed, and their study was approximately $400,000 and for over a period of 2 years. So if you extrapolate that, it would be quite expensive to do about the 2,000 wells that we have in the city of Los Angeles. We expect that there are going to be some economies of scale as we put this together, as we look at some of the operator ownership chains and things like that. So it would not cost that much, but it will be a significant amount of research done. So far, $3.6 million has been set aside in the UB.
Okay, thank you very much. And then lastly, another technical question. I imagine there's a pre-bid for this RFP. Do you mind sharing that to the public for folks to know when that would be, if they're interested in submitting a proposal?
Yeah, our plan was to have it on the 14th, but we're still waiting for the 1022 determination. So we will. So as soon as the proposal is released, we will announce that. But our plan is to have it fairly early on, so people have time to look at things, ask their questions, and attend that.
Okay, got it. Okay, all right. I don't have any other more questions. Colleagues, is there a motion on the table to move this item forward?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Corson and a second by Vice President Villegas to move item number 4 forward and forthwith. Dr. Campos?
Absolutely, President Garcia. And just for clarification, this motion would include the addition of the LBPP, which is the Local Business Preference Program, into the RFP. Just wanted to get that for clarification.
Yes, please.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and start the voting tabulation now, and we'll start with you, Madam President.
Aye.
Vice President Villegas.
Aye.
President Pro Tem Davis.
Davis, aye.
And Commissioner Corzine.
Aye.
This motion is adopted and carries unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all the patrolling team. Devon, thank you for your help. And Erica, thank you for all this work and all the work you're going to continue to do. So with that, have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Great job, Amanda and Devin. This is Fernando. Good job. And Erica as well.
Yes. All right, colleagues. Moving on forward, like I said, we're going to be a little out of order today. We're going to move to administrative item number 5. We do not have a presenter for this item since it's just an administrative motion. This is in all council districts. The mayor has approved and authorized the Board of Public Works on behalf of the Bureau of Sanitation to execute a budget increase and amendment number 1 to the personal services contract with 5 key schools and programs, mobile pit stop, bathroom, and mobile showers programs. We don't have anyone, right, Dr. Campos? I was correct about that.
That is correct. Just the communication from our honorable mayor.
Got it. Is there a second to move this item, to my motion to move this item forward and forthwith?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Dr. Campos is the first by me and a second by Dr. Davis to move item number 5 forward and forthwith.
Great. We'll go ahead and start with the voting tabulation. We'll start with you, President Garcia.
Aye.
Vice President Villegas.
Aye.
President Pro Tem Davis.
Davis, aye.
And Commissioner Corzine.
Aye.
This motion is adopted and carries unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, colleagues, for that. It's important for us to continue to do. All right. Now that's going to take us to, we're going to take item number 3 on today's agenda. I know we're a little out of order today, but I think we will all work out. This item is number 3. This is in Council District number 12. This is a tree removal at 1600 Block West Rinaldo Street. Recommending the board to 1, find that the tree removal 1 classifies as operation, repair, maintenance, or minor alteration of existing street, sidewalk, and gutter involving negligible or no expansion of use beyond that previously existing and does not involve the removal of a scenic resource. 2, that the action is exempt from under Article 3, Section 1, Class 1, Category 3, existing facilities, sidewalk repair, or maintenance of the City of Los Angeles Environmental Quality Act guidelines of 2002, and 3, that none of the exceptions to the use of a categorical exemption as set forth in Section 15300.2 of the State CEQA guidelines apply. And number 2, review and approve this tree removal permit request for the removal of 4 trees, which include 4 carob trees for the reconstruction of off-grade sidewalk, curb, and gutter. Tree replacements are required. And today we have Mr. Brian Ramirez from our Bureau of Street Services presenting on this item.
President
Mr. Ramirez?
Garcia,
Yes.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. Before Mr. Ramirez presents his item, would you like to consider the public comment or after the report?
No, actually, right now is a good time. Sorry, I didn't have it on my my agenda that we had callers on this one. But yes, let's take public comment.
Absolutely. We have just one caller on item number 3. We do have callers on the line for 1 and 2 as well. We'll go ahead and take the comment for item number 3. Joanne D'Antonio, if you can please unmute your microphone at this time. The Board of Public Works is considering item number 3. You will have 2 minutes to speak under this item. Please go ahead.
Thank you. If you look in Transmittal 3 at the photos of the street trees proposed for removal, you will see the tall shoots growing out from the bottom of the tree trunks. This is an example of street tree trimming of suckers that was not done. It is indicative of our not having urban forestry crews for this routine smaller maintenance. Urban forestry is very underfunded, and I would ask you to join many of us in recognizing that a proper urban forestry management plan requires 3 or 4 times the current urban forestry budget. And this level of funding was recognized by the Dudek City Urban Forest Working Group, of which I was a part. It's very sad that these carob trees that provide shade in the hot valley are to be removed, but it is an opportunity to be in sync with the biodiversity directive passed by the full City Council and initially sponsored by Councilmember Krikorian, whom I represent on CFAC. His position is that city planting needs to be exclusively native, nearly exclusively native trees. In line with that, in this case, we should not plant exotic large Virginia oaks, but require the planting of native coast live oaks, which are the same size. We need to require a continuous parkway here to accommodate trees. We must do more for our local fauna, and scientific studies presented by Yale University in their urban forest webinars support that street trees can perform this needed environmental service, and nature-based solutions are critical for climate change mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that our only caller, Dr. Campos?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. D'Antonio, for your comments today. And Mr. Ramirez, we're ready for you now. Good morning.
Good morning, President Garcia, Vice President Villegas, and Commissioners, Dr. Davis, and Commissioner Corzine. My name is Brian Ramirez. I will be presenting on behalf of Streets LA Urban Forestry Division. So what we have before us is a request for the approval from the board in order to remove 4 trees, which include 4 carob trees for the reconstruction of off-grade sidewalk, curb and gutter along the southern portion of the 16,000 block of West Rinaldi. We recommend that you guys, that the board find it that it is categorically exempt under Article 3, Section 1, Class 1, Category 3. Granada Hills Neighborhood Council, in collaboration with the Council District, Office 12, worked together to identify a street improvement project using funds secured from the Sunshine Canyon Amenities Fund. The Granada Hills Neighborhood Council identified the 16,000 block of West Rinaldi Street for needed sidewalk repairs. The Granada Hills Neighborhood Council and CD12 are working with the Los Angeles Conservation Corps, a nonprofit entity, as their contractor to utilize the proposed sidewalk repairs. The CD12 was informed that the proposed sidewalk repairs would severely impact several mature trees along Rinaldi Street. CD12 contacted Streets LA in reference to these proposed repairs, to where a Streets LA arborist inspected the subject location on October 26, 2021 and December 30th, 2021, and verified that 9 street trees are growing along the southern portion of the 16,000 block of West Rinaldi between Gaviota Avenue and Gaynor Avenue. The 9 trees that were identified are 7 carob trees and 2 crepe myrtle trees growing in 7-foot parkways. Of the 9 trees, 4 carob trees will be severely impacted by the proposed repairs and require removal. The 4 carob trees being proposed for removal are in poor to fair condition, measuring approximately 32 inches to 48 inches in diameter by approximately 30 to 40 feet in height. 3 of the 4 trees being recommended for removal display clear evidence of fruiting bodies and decay at the root, crown, and trunk, indicating that trees have progressive decay within the roots and trunk. 1 of the 4 trees is in fair condition, but would not sustain the injury required for the repairs to the surrounding sidewalk, curb, and gutter. The 4 trees are not suitable candidates for preservation. The Los Angeles Conservation Corps is proposing to replace the defective sidewalk, curb, and gutter due to the uplift and severe disruption by the roots and root crown of the subject trees. The trees have severely outgrown their growth space, and defective sidewalks, curb, and gutter are prevalent throughout this section. The required root pruning to allow the trees to remain would significantly impact and adversely affect these trees, their health and their roots, their structural integrity, and it would leave them potentially unstable. Hence, the sidewalk, curb, and gutter reconstruction will require the removal of these 4 trees. Alternatives were explored in this particular project. Initially, there was 6 carob trees that were proposed for removal, and a UFB arborist met with other Streets LA representatives to discuss the proposed repairs and address the impacts to affected street trees. It was determined that 2 carob trees could be retained by implementing reduced sidewalk and ramping. However, due to the project scope, the size, species, and condition of the 4 carob trees, the possibility of tree preservation and relocation is not feasible. The condition is that all tree replacements will comply with the Board of Public Works 2-to-1 tree replacement policy and shall be planted by the Bureau of Street Services, Streets LA. 8 24-inch box-sized Virginia oak, Quercus virginiana trees shall be replanted at the following addresses: 5 trees at 16014, 1 tree at 16020, and 2 trees at 16026 West Rinaldi Street. As it pertains to the notifications and community outreach, the Council District 12 was informed of the tree removal requests on February 17th, 2022, and they will notify Streets LA of any objections received by their office. The notice of the proposed tree removals was physically posted on each of these trees proposed for removal on October 29th, 2021. The proposed tree removals were included in the Bureau of Street Services tree removal notification system, and the Community Forest Advisory Committee and Department of Neighborhood Empowerment were notified also on February 17th, 2022. This concludes my presentation for this item, and I'm willing to answer any questions that the board may have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez, for your very thorough report. Colleagues, any questions on this item? Dr. Davis.
Thank you so much for your report, Mr. Ramirez. Did you say that you had collaborated with Councilman, was it Paul Krikorian for this item?
Yes, the initial request came from the council office. I personally did not speak to the council member.
But your staff did.
His office reached out to our staff.
So I take for granted that they are in support of the action of the Urban Forestry Administration on this matter.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Commissioner Corson.
I don't have a question, just a few comments. Having lived in this area for nearly 2 decades, up until 2014, and running on this portion of Rinaldi for over 14 years, having spoken to the 2 previous council members during that time, I'm very familiar with this portion of the sidewalk. Dr. Davis, I would assure you that Councilmember Lee is in support of this, because this stretch we've gone back and forth, like I said, for a very long time. The trees do provide a lot of shade. It makes it really wonderful when you're walking or running, especially in the summer when it gets really hot in this portion. But it has gotten to the point where you leave the sidewalk and go on the street. So I think there's some give and take with needing to prepare the sidewalk and what kind of trees that would be more beneficial in the area. So I'm really excited, just as someone who is familiar with this area, to see this improvement is being made. I think the community members and the council member would be very pleased with the job that's been done. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Commissioner Corson. I don't see any other questions as well. Just to reiterate, 3 out of the 4 trees that we would be removing are, in other words, not in good, healthy conditions. And then the last tree is will not sustain the impact that the maintenance. I'm sorry, that the construction would happen around that tree, right?
That's correct.
Got it. Okay. And in total, how many trees are we replanting back into that stretch of the street?
We are replanting a total of 8 trees.
Got it. At what size, Brian?
It is a 24-inch box size trees.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Thank you very much. I don't have any additional questions either. I'm okay with putting a motion forward, moving this item forward as well.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Dr. Campos, there's a first by me and a second by Vice President Villegas to move item number 3 forward and forthwith.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and start the voting tabulation, and we'll start with you, President Garcia.
Aye.
Vice President Villegas.
Aye.
President Pro Tem Davis.
Davis, aye.
And Commissioner Corzan.
Aye.
This motion is adopted and carries unanimous.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Ramirez, thank you for your presentation. We look forward to the work that's going to happen out there. Thank you. Are you here for the other items too? I'm going to do item number 1 next. Take it you are. Got it. All right, moving on to item number 1. This is an item in Council District 11. This is a tree removal at 592 and 594 North Tiger Tail Road. Recommending the board to 1, find that this project is categorically exempt under Article 3, Section 1, Class 3, Category 1, and Class 32 infill of the city's Environmental Quality Act guidelines, and there is no substantial evidence the proposed project will have significant effect on the environment and is in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. 2, find that none of the exceptions to the use of categorical exemption as set forth in section 15300.2 of state CEQA guidelines apply. 3, specify that the Bureau of Street Services Urban Forestry Division, located at 1149 South Broadway, is custodian of all the documents or other material that constitute the record of proceedings upon which the board's decision is based. And 4, review and approve the request for a fee permit to remove 8 coast live oak trees. Tree replacements are required. And I believe we have a couple of callers on this item, Dr. Campos.
That is correct. I believe we have 2 members from the general public on item number 1. We'll go ahead and start by taking Dr. Tom Williams. Dr. Williams, if you can please unmute your microphone. The Board of Public Works is considering item number 1. You will have 2 minutes to speak under this item. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Dr. Tom Williams, life member of the California Native Plant Society and a few others. Basically, these are good oak trees. There's nothing wrong with them except that they're in the wrong place. The problem is that we've reviewed satellite images on Google Earth for the last 20 years, and there seems to have been a lot of tree reduction. I don't know if it was removals or whether the removals had permits or not, but given the location and the hilltop of it, it should be reviewed again regarding past tree removals, and the Department of City Planning has extensive aerial photographs of the areas and could provide actual dates and times that trees or foliage has been removed from this site. I think they just want to clear the view so that they will have a great view of LA City, west side. So as far as replanting, there's quite a few places in the local area that need more trees because there's been unenforced tree removal. So I highly recommend continuing this and reviewing the past history, say for the last 10 or 20 years, of aerial photographs and tree removal permits on this same location. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. We'll go ahead and take the next caller on the line, Shelley Bellick. If you can please unmute your microphone by pressing *6 or click the unmute icon. The Board of Public Works is considering item number 1. Please go ahead and you'll have 2 minutes to speak under this item.
Thank you very much, Dr. Campos, and good morning, Commissioners, President Garcia. This is Shelley Billick. I'm chair of CFAC, the Community Forest Advisory Committee, and I wanted to thank you for the additional time that you afforded us by providing us with a continuance in previous meetings so that we could have a very productive, collaborative dialogue with the applicant, with Urban Forestry Division, with our CD11 CFAC rep, and with the council office of Councilmember Bonin. And I believe that we arrived at a good agreement, although we were not able to preserve the 8 existing mature oak trees that are on the site due to grading, because as you know, we don't see the tree removals until very late in the process, and that's something that we need to continue working on. We were able to come to an agreement with the applicant on a deed restriction for part of the parcel which has an oak woodland, which is critical to habitat and critical for our own resilience, our own livability in the city due to the climate crisis. So I just want to thank you for giving us that additional time that we often don't have to have a really productive, collaborative discussion that arrives at a better project for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well. And I believe we have one more caller, right?
Thank you. Let me double check. Tony Russo, I know that you're part of the applicant. Would you like to provide any commentary or only if the board has any questions?
Yeah, I actually would. This is Tony Russo, TONYRUSSO, on behalf of Crest Real Estate, and we are the applicant's representative. I do want to just give one quick comment. We really do appreciate the board and all the community members, as well as the council office, that has worked with us on making this project and request happen. We're obviously not pleased with the need to remove the protected oaks. However, due to Valley Department of Building and Safety's grading division requirements regarding the site and the slope stability, it's just unfortunate that they do have to be removed. And we're really pleased that the community came to us with solutions-oriented items as opposed to just saying no, this can't happen. They were able to work with us in a manner that I think can be a model for future projects, where we tried to identify what we could do, and we were able to do that. And we have since worked out an agreement with them, and now we have a deed restriction on the eastern slope to preserve and protect at least those trees and vegetation. So I just wanted to say that we really appreciate everyone's time and efforts on this, and we're glad to see that this is able to move forward in sort of a win-win situation. So we really just wanted to thank everyone.
Great, thank you very much as well. And I understand that we probably also have the Office of Council District 11. If they would like to say something, more than open for that. Noah, are you here? Do you want to speak, or if there are any questions?
Let me open up the lines for Noah. I know he's on the line.
Okay.
Hello, Commissioner President Garcia. No, I don't have any comment, but just to echo both what Tony and Shelley said, the applicant and the president of CFAC, that we greatly appreciated both the applicant and the community coming together to work on this resolution.
I agree. Thank you very much, Noah, and thank you also for being so committed to this item as well. Okay, Mr. Bañuelos and Mr. Miranda, ready for you. Thank you. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, President Garcia, Commissioners. Hector Bañuelos here with Streets LA Urban Forestry Division. What we have for us is a request for a permit to remove 8 coast live oak trees at 592 and 594 North Tiger Tail Road and Council District 11 in the community of Brentwood. Currently there are 2 vacant lots where previously existed some homes, but they were demolished quite a while ago. So on these lots there are a total of about 12, not about, but are a total of 12 coast live oak trees on both lots, of which 8 trees exist on 592 North Tiger Tail and 4 oaks are on 594 North Tiger Tail. These are within the immediate proximity of where all the grading and construction is occurring. So there are 4 of the 8 oak trees on 592 North Tiger Tail will be retained, minimally impacted and retained in place. I do also want to make note that there's a wild woodland area, was previously mentioned by Shelley, that it's going to be protected. All the trees and the native shrubbery there, vegetation is going to be not be impacted. And the applicant and the communities and CFAC and all involved have reached an agreement. Glad to say. So with the 8 trees that are being impacted, unfortunately, due to grading, and some of the trees are in the footprint of the home construction, and so therefore it has to be removed. They are going to be replaced at the board required 4 to 1. The trees to be replaced, the 32 replacement trees, 20 trees are going to be planted at 592 North Tiger Tail, and the remaining 12 trees will be planted at 594 North Tiger Tail. This is due to the constraints there of the lands and the lots. The lots at 594 is much smaller, but 26,000 square feet, but there's a lot of hillside area there as well, and driveways going to the location. So 4 trees can be feasibly planted, or excuse me, 12 trees we physically planted at that particular property boundaries. And the remaining 20 trees we planted on the 592 North Tiger Tail, which is a much larger property. And so that can more easily accommodate the remaining replacement trees. If approved, these tree replacements will require to be bonded for a minimum 3-year period, and will be maintained throughout that duration of the bonding period. The Council District 11, the Community Forestry Advisory Committee, and the Neighborhood Empowerment were informed of the tree removal permit request. Initially, we did receive a response from the council members. He indicated that he was opposed to the removals. However, right now, although nobody wants to see trees removed, right, we don't like to see these projects come forward to the board. We try to do whatever we can do to try to minimize the impact and minimize the amount of removals, so I don't have to be up here speaking before the board trying to explain everything. Right. So, but these trees, in order to allow the applicants to construct their homes, they have to be removed, unfortunately. So I just want to state also for the record that I noticed there was a small typographical error on the recommendations. And recommendation number 1, this is actually, it's not section, it's section 15303, not so much section 1. Sorry, I missed a few digits there. So it's section 153303, class 3, and sections 15332, class 32 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines. Is what the Department of City Planning has determined that the project is categorized as, and it did prepare a notice of exemption for this project here. And so the Streets LA is asking that the board find that the project is category exempt under those same sections within California Environmental Quality Act. So that concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions that the board may have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Banuelos. Any questions, colleagues? Vice President Villegas.
Thank you. Thank you to our Streets LA staff. Thank you to the people that called in today, and to Council Office 11, and to everyone who was involved with this case. I do have some questions, and I'm just going to make some comments first. We take these issues to heart, and we really pay attention. I think we must have met for, a good, amount of time, particularly on this case. Before it comes to the board, this is, obviously ceremonial for us to take a vote on it. These cases are not taken lightly. I know that some of our, folks that, we partner with, I'll also, request that we take a look at these kinds of cases just seriously. So I do want to say that we don't take this lightly at all, and we do spend quite an amount of time reviewing all specific angles of the decisions that are going to be before us. With that, I'm glad that the community and our Streets LA staff and the developer were able to at least come together and, do a little bit more collaboration. We've seen in my tenure, 2.5 years here, something similar, in the past. I understand with this, covenants, restricted covenants that we'd be placing on a portion of the hillside, they'll just restrict any additional development from going forward. I do just want to say for the record, the landowner did agree to that, we knew that in advance of meeting and in advance of the other prior meetings that went on behind the scenes. But we also understand that just through further collaboration with the MRCA, the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority, and with the developer, they were able to come to an agreement to put a restricted covenants on a portion of the land so that the hillside will not be developed. Barring the conservation easement that will be placed, or the restricted covenants that will be placed on this land, the landowner did want to do that independently. Just want to state that for the record. Now they'll actually be placed a covenants on it. So I just wanted to, let you all know that. And then I just had, for just my background purposes, Hector, if you could just let us know what kind of if you can provide additional context, or if you can also provide additional information with this restriction placed on the developer's property. We're abiding by, another state agency that has either like a wildlife habitat corridor on it. And I just wanted to see if you could provide just a little bit more context on what that is, just for the record.
There was lots of discussions, right, with the applicant and council office, myself, urban forestry division. So the deed restriction is just a small area there, northeast part of the property here, right, that was set aside there for wildlife and for just the natural habitat. So I don't know exactly the exact details of exactly the legal descriptions of the property here, but we do have the applicant here online as well. Perhaps maybe he can better address that question.
Sure. Just so that we can understand, the city doesn't do these restrictions, that doesn't take it lightly. This property is by right a developer's ability to, do a project. However, we took some time, we took a step back just to be able to bring everyone together and to come to some type of an agreement. And I understand that now we're placing a deed restriction. In the conservation world, we just call it a conservation easement. But we're also not just abiding by our city rules and laws, but we're also abiding by like any kind of state, either layer or mapping that's placed on these lands because of a wildlife corridor. And I just wanted an explanation on that, just to provide a little bit more characterization so that we know what's before us.
Yeah, so the area to the most like more east, but northeast of the total project site, primarily on 592 Tiger Tail, is an area that's heavily vegetated, and it's an oak woodland as defined in our tree report. It's very steep, so it's hard to access. It's not easily accessible. That's why our arborist just said, hey, there are some protected trees down there, and defined it as a woodland. Obviously, that can provide habitat for many different species and such. This wasn't necessarily a state mandated or city mandated protective corridor, but obviously it could be used for that, and our client was acknowledging of that, and that's why we worked with the community to propose this deed restriction. So just to get into the details of what it does, so it's about 18,000 square feet of area, so it's sizable, to the east of the property, that will in perpetuity be protected from development, fencing, lighting, grading. There's a lot of restrictions for what can be done in that area, but effectively it is to be preserved as it currently is, which is just a natural vegetated area where for all of the future, no development of any kind can go into it. And if you do look at the maps, it does connect to other vegetated areas, sort of in the rear of other developed properties going north. So it does provide connectivity throughout the area. And honestly, it was, like I mentioned before, really a win-win, because our client's goals are obviously to develop his property and to construct the home that he has worked so hard to get through plan check and all the other entitlements. But at the same time, it provided the community with a sense of security that area was going to be conserved, in perpetuity. So if you do look through the deed restriction, there are quite a lot of limitations and very few uses for that area. And so that's pretty much it. Those are the details.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that. Last time we did it was just in conjunction with the MRCA, so that's why I just wanted to, and then a lot of the documents they received just referenced, some other project that we had done. But I see that this one is independent, and this is just for a deed restriction that's done by the city. Is that correct?
No, so it is with the MRCA. I do apologize. Maybe I didn't
It is with the.
clarify that.
Do we have anybody
Correct.
from MRCA here?
Mr. Jordan, do you want to jump in on this one? Just to.
So I was checking.
Yeah.
The Mountains Recreation Conservation Authority, the deed restriction is in their favor. However, this deed restriction, as Mr. Russo was saying, this just represents a private agreement that arose out of the concerns being raised by the tree removals in this development. The Mountains Recreation Conservation Authority, MRCA, I think they very generously made themselves available to take part in the deed restriction, and so that's what their role will be here. And Commissioner Vargas, as you noted, this has been done in the past, and I think there may have been different circumstances in the past when it was done, but in this instance, it's a agreement that was reached by the interested parties here, and the MRCA is going to be involved as the party to whom the deed restriction is in favor. And then at a certain point, if the board wishes to move forward, pursuant to that private agreement, the parties have all agreed to include the deed restriction as an additional condition upon the issuance of the permit. And I think Mr. Russo has indicated that as the developer and applicant here, that they're in agreement with the condition that if the board wants to, I can read into the record that will describe how the deed restriction will play out in terms of the issuance of the tree removal permit.
Thank you.
But I don't see anyone from, I was looking, there have been a couple of folks from the MRCA that have been involved in the discussions. Mr. Edelman, and also my notes here, Mr. Weinstein. I don't see them in the meeting, however, but I don't think we necessarily need their participation here in order to move forward.
No, we don't need their participation. It's helpful for, educational purposes, and just for the record. My, understanding of what we had done in the past was, there was a wildlife corridor, and there were maps that matched the, MRCA's, purview over those wildlife corridors. In this case, we don't have that, and I'm just trying to set the record straight. I understand that we're all in agreement to do this, deed restriction, but but I also understand that what we're doing is setting precedents, and so that's why I want to set the record clear. And in terms of what we're doing today, if the MRCA does not have an overlay over this, land or over this corridor, I want the record to be verbalized today, and just for clarity. And second, because we've come to this agreement, and I just want our board to understand that we're also setting a path, for the future. That in the event, we may not be here, next year, but there will be and correct me if I'm wrong, Ted, our city attorney, but I feel that, even if there is an agreement here, which I'm happy that there is, we just are setting a path forward, for the future, the authority of the Board of Public Works.
I appreciate that. It's not necessarily setting a precedent. Again, in prior projects had different legal issues at stake. So this project obviously has some facial similarity to the prior project that I think everyone's referring to. but legal issues are in fact different.
Yeah, I understand.
Oh,
Go ahead.
If I may add, the MRCA does have jurisdiction over the Santa Monica Mountains areas, which this is obviously a part of, and they're a trustee agency with the state of California.
I understand that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. And just to kind of, I guess, clarify sort of the reasons for this, is that it is an oak woodland. So there are, protected trees in this area that, we are wanting to protect. The community is wanting to protect, and our client team obviously wanted to voluntarily do that in cooperation with the MRCA and CFAC to ensure that those are protected for the future. So, yeah.
I appreciate that, and again, this is just to set the record straight on the actions that we're going to be doing today. And maybe the word precedent isn't, correct, but this is a path forward for everyone. I don't have any further questions. Again, my intent here is just to set the record straight on how we got to these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Villegas. Appreciate your thorough comments and questions there. And Mr. Russo, I appreciate you coming on to today's Zoom meeting here at the board. And also I appreciate everyone that worked around this, because this is the goal that we have at the board, that we get to these type of agreements and compromises where everyone in the community feels comfortable of what's happening around them. So I really do I wanted to just take time to say that to everyone here before we continue to move forward. Mr. Jordan, I believe we want to state a fifth recommendation based on some of the developments that happened within the past 2 weeks that include the deed, right? I'm gonna let you read that into the record so that we as board members can consider that as recommendation number 5. Mr. Russo, it's not something that's changing. It's something that is already, that you're, obviously this is why, that your client has agreed to. So, Mr.
Correct.
Jordan, are you here? Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yes, I am. So I believe the proposal is to add recommendation number 5. You currently have 4 recommendations, and I'm going to pull it up on my computer here. Sorry about that. I'm bouncing around windows here. Okay. So I believe Dr. Campos has this already in an email. So I will read it slowly and carefully so that everyone here in the meeting can hear it and understand it. I'm not going to read it so slowly that someone could be typing it, because we already have it in the public record before us. So as a condition number 5, it would say, prior to the city's issuance of the tree removal permit, applicant shall submit proof of the recordation of a restrictive covenant on the deed of subject property, assessor parcel numbers 4494-001-028 and 4494-001-029 in favor of the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority, MRCA, or another public agency, as agreed to by the applicant at the April 8th, 2022 hearing. Said restrictive covenant shall affect and protect the oak woodland areas on the subject properties as defined in the deed restriction and covenant for conservation purposes, the boundaries of which are approximately delineated by the map labeled Exhibit B, dated April 4th, 2022, also known as the Restricted Use Area. The covenant shall expressly prohibit the removal of protected trees within the restricted use area for either project, and shall expressly prohibit the removal of trees replanted as the condition of the protected tree ordinance. So that would be the proposed recommendation number 5, be added to today's action that the parties collectively have been discussing and have agreed to.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Mr. Russo, this is what you have your understanding too, right?
Correct. Yeah, and we're in full agreement.
Okay, agreed. Colleagues, any objections to adding a recommendation number 5? Good. Okay. Any other folks that want to speak on this item before we start with any of our voting here? Seem that way. Okay, I'm just always want to make sure that everybody's has said what they had said and everybody's in satisfied and we can all move forward. But I really do appreciate that it is always our goal to be and work on this type of way. So thank you, Mr. Russo. Please thank your client as well for that. Okay, colleagues, is there a motion on the table to move this item forward?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice President Villegas. Is there a second? I'll second. Okay. Thank you.
I got started.
No worries. Gotcha.
Okay.
All right. Colleagues, there's Dr. Campos, there's a first by me and a there's a first by Vice President Villegas and a second by me to move item number 1 forward with the 5th recommendation added by City Attorney Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Madam President. Also, for clarity, Mr. Benuelos read into the record an amendment to the CEQA findings, and if I can just get Mr. Benuelos to clarify if those section numbers go into recommendation number 2 as a finding or recommendation number 1. And if you can just state those sections for me one more time, just to make sure that I have the records correct.
Sure. Yeah. Yes, hi, Bernardo. Yeah, so it goes into recommendation number 1.
Number 1?
Yes, and that would be just right after Article 3, would be Section 15303, Class 3, and Section 15332, Class 32.
Okay, we don't have to strike any of these current ones, right? It's just an addition to number 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. So I will go ahead, President Garcia, as the motion from Vice President Villegas, seconded by President Garcia, to amend item number 1's report to include the new recommendation number 5 and also the amendments to recommendation number 1 to reflect the 2 sections referenced by Mr. Benuelos.
Yes, as is. Thank you.
Great. I will go ahead and start the voting tabulation, if that's okay with you, Madam President.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second. Everybody's okay with the last change, right, on number 1? Okay. It sounds that way. No objections, Dr. Campos. We can move forward.
Great. We'll go ahead and start the voting tabulation. We'll start with you, President Garcia.
Aye.
Vice President Villegas.
Aye.
President Pro Tem Davis.
Davis, aye.
And Commissioner Corzan.
Aye.
This motion is adopted as amended, and it carries unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Russo. Thank you, Mr. Benuelos, Mr. Miranda, and everyone else that's on the line and everyone else that worked around this project. On behalf of the board, we really appreciate the collaborative approach we had towards this. So thank you very much. Have a good rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
All right. Colleagues, that takes us now to item number 2 on today's agenda. This is an item in Council District number 10. This is a tree removal at 1010 South Kenmore Avenue and West Olympic Boulevard, recommending the board to 1, find that the project as a whole is categorically exempt pursuant to Section 15332, Class 3.2 of the State Environmental Quality Act guidelines, and there is no substantial evidence that the proposed project will have a significant effect on the environment and is in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act. 2, find that none of the exceptions of the use of categorical exemption as set forth in Section 15300.2 of State CEQA guidelines apply. 3, specify that the Bureau of Street Services Urban Forestry Division, located at 1149 South Broadway, is custodian of the documents or other material that constitute the record of proceedings upon which the board's decision is based. 4, review and approve the request for a fee permit for the removal of 4 trees, which include 2 pink trumpet and 2 teepoo trees. Tree replacements are required. And 5, concur with the Bureau of Street Services determination that the site cannot visibly accommodate all of the required replacement trees, and pursuant to LAMC 662.177C, authorize that the tree replacement guarantee fee to satisfy the board's tree planting requirements. And we have Mr. Miranda and Mr. Bañuelos on this item, but I believe we have a couple of callers as well, so we can take callers now, Dr. Campos.
Great, thank you, President Garcia. We do have 4 callers on the line for item number 2. We'll go ahead and start with the first caller, Joanne D'Antonio. If you can please unmute your microphone. The Board of Public Works is now considering comments on item number 2. Please go ahead. You'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Hi. I got an email this morning that Wilshire Center Koreatown board member Elizabeth Israelowitz was not getting recognized with her hand raised. Do you have her now? Okay. I was copied on some of the email correspondence on this item between the neighborhood councils and the DWP, and I can attest that the DWP representative was willing to meet but unable to meet until this afternoon. He was aware that this meeting was taking place, but he could not fit it into his schedule. So I understand that the neighborhood councils have been in conversation with the developer, but this last part with the DWP will need to take place. Therefore, I support a continuance until they finish their meetings, because it is important when the community is making an effort to resolve issues in their area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. D'Antonio. We'll go ahead and move on to the next caller, Aurora Corona from the Pico Union Neighborhood Council. If you can please unmute your microphone at this time. You'll have 2 minutes to speak under this item. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. And like the other members before me, the public, I want to thank the board for giving us the extra time and the continuance. But again, like Joanne D'Antonio, we are still in the process of speaking to other departments, the LADWP. I do want to also get an extended time, just because I want to give you an update, because our neighborhood council did submit a letter to the board, and I want to speak on behalf of the neighborhood council, Pico Union Neighborhood Council. So the update that I want to give the board is that we did meet with the developer and the applicant, the representative for the applicant, and we did come up again with a partial agreement. We requested 12 trees to be given to the community, and we requested that KYCC receive those funds and provide the maintenance, the planting, the mulching for the 12 trees that the developer is willing to provide. The only problem with that is that the applicant representative does not know whether the owner is willing to pay for the maintenance till we provide the proposal from KYCC. And we have been waiting for KYCC's proposal to finalize the agreement. So we, again, ask for continuance on this item till we can get that proposal from KYCC to present to the owner and finalize the agreement that the Pico Union Neighborhood Council decided on. So we ask that you kindly do this, and we are also in support of the Wilshire Greater Koreatown Neighborhood Council. They are trying very hard to save 1 tree, and I support what they are doing, and I will be at the meeting at 2 o'clock this afternoon with LADWP to see if 1 tree could be saved, and I believe my neighborhood council colleague will speak on behalf of that. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Aurora. We'll move on to the next caller. I believe it's Elizabeth from the Wilshire Center Koreatown Neighborhood Council. If you can please unmute your microphone.
Yes.
Is this Elizabeth?
Yes, this is Elizabeth.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So I just wanted to clarify and make sure that you guys received the documents that were submitted. We submitted an updated statement, as well as supporting documents. Unfortunately, there's no way to upload anything to the Google Doc. I would hope in the future you guys adjust that so that supporting documents can be uploaded directly to that Google Doc. So I emailed it to Dr. Campos. And so I just want to confirm that you guys received those.
Dr. Campos, I believe we received all of the Google Forms this morning, right?
Yes, the Google Forms were distributed to all commissioners, and I will go through my emails just to make sure that we did receive the document that Elizabeth is referencing. I'm assuming the documents were submitted either today or yesterday.
Yes. It would be the kind of in between midnight-ish, unfortunately. I was still up working.
Okay.
Okay, I can, sorry.
Go ahead. I can continue with your comments while Dr. Campos looks for that.
Yes. WCK, I'm just going to kind of summarize what we sent you guys. We request a continuance for the item until the following, which were previously communicated 2 weeks ago. Stipulations are met. 1, a meeting with LADWP and the developer to discuss the 2 tree removals on Olympic Boulevard. As previously noted, we were able to get this meeting scheduled. Unfortunately, the soonest it could be scheduled by the LADWP representative was 2 p.m. today. Secondly, per the Brown Act, we had previously requested to Mr. Benuelos as well as to this committee that per the Brown Act, all submitted public comment related to the tree removal, including those emailed to Hector Benuelos, or any other city officials listed as a contact on the tree removal notification or Board of Public Works agenda, be made publicly available. Thirdly, we have been working with the developer, and they are willing to do a permeable driveway and a permeable sidewalk, which is, as seen in the documents that I submitted, which is allowable by the City of Los Angeles, and the Board of Public Works actually has already come up with some standard plans as to how to do that on parkways. This would allow, we believe, for at least 3 out of the 4 quadrants of the southernmost tree on Kenmore to be protected, and then we believe that if there is repair done to the curb in that area, then it would allow at least part of another quadrant of that tree to be protected. We believe, and we request again, we made this request 2 weeks ago also, that if Urban Forestry does not support this revised plan and still does not believe that that tree on Kenmore is viable, we ask that there be a specific tree assessment and report. We have followed up with Urban Forestry as well as a developer, and no formal assessment or report has been completed to evaluate the viability of this southernmost tree, a mature, healthy tree on Kenmore, or the viability under these updated development plans. Nor has there been any type of evaluation regarding possible other mitigations that could be completed. So again, we really appreciate the continuances that have been granted, and we are working diligently. I'm actually supposed to be on a leave of absence from the Neighborhood Council because I'm in the middle of my qualifying exam for my PhD and pregnant, 2 very complicated things. But, we are all taking time out of our lives, working really hard, and I appreciate the developer and LADWP and UFD to try to come to, a compromise that really meets everybody's needs. And we just ask for a continuation of 2 more weeks so that we can have this meeting this afternoon. Those public records can be made available. And thirdly, there can be some type of tree report and assessment specifically on that southernmost tree, which is within which such requests are in the purview of Board of Public Works, as per the excuse me, as per the clearances that are allotted. So 11 per 11B 3.1 of the building permit clearance handbook Board of Public Works can request such tree reports to occur. And we believe these types of tree reports really should be occurring more often, especially in tree poor areas. And we think it's the least that this tree deserves. It's provided shade for this community for decades and has many, many decades ahead of itself if it were left as is. And so we think the least that we could get would be, you know, some type of report and some type of discussion as to what other possible mitigations could be done. So thank you for your time, and have a great rest of your meeting. But I will be here if you have questions also.
Thank you. Any other more callers, Dr. Campos?
Yes, we do. We have one more caller. And for the record, President Garcia, the document or the email reference by the WCKNC was received this morning at 1:52 this morning, and that has been forwarded to all commissioners. My apologies. It was not labeled as an item, so it just came in as a regular email. So that has been distributed to everyone on this call. We'll go ahead and take the last caller on the line. Caller TJ Spar, S-P-A-U-R. Oh, they just lowered their hand. If you can please unmute your microphone at this time, you'll have 2 minutes to speak on this item.
Good morning. Hi, Agnes. My name is TJ Spar, and I am the treasurer for the Pico Union Neighborhood Council. Thank you for your continued attention to this matter. I'm just calling to echo the previous speakers and saying that we hope that this can be continued until at least the next week after we've had a chance to meet regarding the viability of the tree, which my colleague just spoke of so eloquently. And I just have to say I'm really proud of all of the community advocates who are here to, you know, make sure that developers are making tree removal a last resort. So please heed the advice of the previous callers and allow us to have this item continue till next week. Thank you.
Okay, is that our last caller, Dr. Campos?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you very much for all the callers and your commitment to the city. We'll start with our presentation, Mr. Bañuelos and Mr. Miranda.
Hi, good morning, President Garcia, Commissioners. Hector Bañuelos with Suites LA Urban Forestry Division. What we have before us is a request for a fee permit to remove 4 street trees at 1010 South Kenmore Avenue and Council District 10. This site is located at the southeast corner of Kenmore Avenue and Olympic Boulevard. And right now there is an ongoing construction project where the developer is constructing 126 residential dwelling unit mixed-use development with ground floor commercial space. The development currently, as I mentioned, under construction, and as a condition to provide access to the development, the developer is required to install 2 driveways. One 23-foot wide driveway there along Kenmore, and another wide driveway there along Olympic Boulevard. Now, such the driveway along Kenmore is there is one tipu tree growing directly within the footprint of that driveway, and another tree growing right directly adjacent to the driveway. Suites LA, first and foremost, always looks for alternatives and tries to seek alternative measures before we consider removal of a tree. This tree has been assessed. We have had reports, as it's written, that's report. It has the condition of the trees, and the tree cannot be root pruned. It remains structurally stable and healthy. The driveway location of one of the trees is directly on the corner. You're going to be cutting 3 sides of the roots in order to allow construction of that driveway. It was mentioned on one of the callers there regarding alternative measures of a permeable concrete. You still have to cut roots to install that permeable concrete. And you're going to go right directly up against the trunk of one of those trees. Those trees grow very large, very quickly, and they're capable of growing very tall. However, there are overhead wires along Kenmore side, but not permitting those trees to grow, right? Because water and power continually will, as is required, trim those trees down below the wires to maintain the integrity there of the power supply. So with that, there is not no feasible means to keep those two trees, unfortunately. There is another tree there growing along Kenmore that is to be retained in place. That tree was previously identified for removal as a floss silk tree. It's a fairly mature tree, about 12 inches in diameter. It's growing pretty close to a power pole. However, there's no construction impact to that tree that deems it necessary to remove. And so that tree is being retained in place. There are two other trumpet trees on the site on the Olympic Boulevard side. One of the trumpet trees has to be removed because of the driveway location on the Olympic Boulevard is going to impact one of the street lights, and kind of a domino effect. So the street light then has to be moved to another location. At least one. Forgot what the measurement was from the other, because another street light, actually two street lights growing in front of this property here along Olympic Boulevard. So they cannot relocate that street light going towards the west of Olympic, because there is a street light there. In addition to that, there's also a water and power transformer going right in that same area. And so they have to relocate the street light within 20 feet of this original location onto the other side of that driveway, which then impacts another tree on the adjacent property. So unfortunately, that one trumpet tree has to be removed for that reason. There's no other alternatives, according to what we've been told by the applicant, and according to street lighting, Bureau Street Lighting, that the street light has to be installed. There's one more remaining trumpet tree that's somewhat questioned. The community did reach out to Water and Power. We did receive some correspondence. The applicant did actually some correspondence from Water and Power, where one trumpet tree has to be removed in order for Water and Power to install their transformers to supply power to the development. The transformers are required, to supply all the power that's needed for all those units of cooling units. The Water and Power requires that they have free access, clear access, about 20 feet at least. I've been told 40 sometimes, but they need a clear access for them to operate the crane to where they can install the transformer and provide maintenance that may be needed at a later date. According to Water and Power, the tree must be removed in order for them to install and maintain the transformer. So that the trees, if approved, removal of the trees if approved, there was room to plant one big trumpet tree along Olympic Boulevard. Due to all the infrastructure that's going to be installed, there's only room for one, and there is room for additional 5 trees there along Kenmore Street, so a total of 6 trees. But 2 trees are remain to meet the 2-to-1. So those 2 trees we're asking that the board allow Streets LA to charge the applicant the tree planting guarantee fee for those 2 trees to be planted later at a later date under that program. The trees that are planted will be watered for a minimum 3 years to 5-year period to establishment. One of the applicants was that there's a certain handbook there with building and safety. The Streets LA doesn't use that handbook. That's for building and safety. However, we do not have authority to compel a property owner to install irrigation. We recommend it, highly recommend it. Irrigation can be manual. It doesn't have to be automatic, but it's highly suggested that the applicant's developer does install automatic irrigation to alleviate the need to continually water the trees, risking that they die, right, due to lack of water. So the permeable pavement is always somewhat of consideration, and its alternatives. However, in this case, it doesn't seem a feasible alternative. We did look at the trees. I'm a certified arborist. Well, I've not physically been on site in a while, but I know those trees. My staff went out there and inspected it. They are certified arborists. They did inspect it and determined that the trees cannot survive the impact for the sidewalk or the curb construction and the driveways. So unfortunately, that one tree to the south on Kenmore must be removed. There's no possible way to keep it in place and still allow it to remain stable and help the tree. That concludes my presentation. I'm here to address any questions the board may have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Bañuelos. Mr. Miranda, you're here as support to Mr. Bañuelos? Got it. Okay. Colleagues, any questions on this item? sound like it. Vice President Villegas.
I don't have any questions necessarily, but we did have the request to, continue the item. I don't know if we want to, discuss that with, here amongst our staff, just to be able to grant that. I know we've already continued this item. Hector, if you can, or Mr. Banuelos, if you can just, shed any more light on that, that would be helpful.
It appears that there's some communication with Water and Power and the neighborhood council, and that they have a meeting scheduled for 2 p.m. this afternoon to look at feasibility of potentially retaining one tree there on Olympic and still allowing Water and Power to install the transformer. So, I'm okay with that if Water and Power can, me personally, I'm not really affected, but me want to ask the applicant that. But, I'm all for saving trees if whenever possible. Previous discussions or some correspondence we received from Water and Power was that the tree must be removed in order for the Water and Power to install the transformer. So I'm not sure what may have changed since they've submitted the application and since that correspondence was released by Water and Power. So, but I'll leave that to the board as to whether or not they want to honor the request for continuance.
Okay, thank you for that. And do we have the developer here?
Yes, I do. Milan Garrison. Milan, you should receive, or M-I-L-A-N, Milan. You should receive an invitation to join us as a panelist. And once you receive that invitation, if you can just accept that and turn on your video cam for us. There you go. Thank you so much. And I apologize if I mispronounced your name. You're on mute.
It's Milan, Long Island. We've been working with the neighborhood council, both of them, and as well as the city council office with the reinstalled councilman. They've given us their full support of the project and understanding the criteria that we are stuck with right now. We don't oppose to meeting with EWP, and if you choose to continue it, we will continue to be working with the neighborhood councils, trying to do our best for efforts.
Thank you for joining us today and just for answering my question. All right, and so, I don't know what kind of, result the meeting will have, just to be able to, have, a little bit more collaboration. I just, propose that we just at least continue just for 1 week. And if this item can come back.
Is that a motion?
Give me 1 second, just so that everybody's clear. Just because we would give the permit doesn't mean that the developer can save a tree after. There are also 3 trees that are in question that the construction kind of needs to move forward with, and there's 1 tree that can possibly be saved out of the 4. If we continue it 1 more time, then all 4 are still in a halt. But if we move forward, that does not mean, Mr. Garrison, that you cannot change the 1 tree that we are still that the community is aiming to save. I just wanted to make that clear because given now, I know we've have granted 2 extensions, which equals now like a month in a halt in construction as we move forward, and it's not quite helping neither of the parties. But I am very happy to hear that, Mr. Garrison, that you're your team is working with the Wilshire Korea Neighborhood Council. Is that right? Because that was the one neighborhood council that was in question last time before we submitted for another extension.
That is correct. We've been working with both neighborhood councils. And if at all possible, if we can save a tree, then we would love to save a tree.
Agreed. And give me 1 second, Mr. Bañuelos, did you say that you received some kind of response from the Department of Water and Power?
Yes, we did receive some electronic correspondence. I believe that is transmittal over. This was when the application was started. It was removal permit. It is on one of the transmittals there. I'm looking for it right now. I'm not sure if it's number 6 or number 8. But there was some correspondence received from the applicant indicating that the water and power needed to have the tree removed.
And when was that, Mr. Bañuelos?
Give me a few seconds and look that up real quick.
Mr. Corson, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, so that was transmittal number 9, and that was back in August of 21.
Okay. We'll come right back to that. I'm going to go to Mr. Corson's questions, and then I think we have some more kind of clarification that we can do. So just hang on tight, Mr. Garrison, too. Mr. Corson?
Thank you. Mr. Garrison, thank you for agreeing to some type of continuance. My question for staff is, what is the state or stage of the project right now? President Garcia just said it's halted. What's the timeline? Because this is approved. Is the building, is it done? Is it ready? Just needs DBS permitting to have occupancy, or is there a little bit more time in terms of construction needed?
I believe that's a question for Mr. Garrison. Can you kind of let us know where you're at?
We are probably about 85% done. Each day that we lose is a tremendous loss in terms of dollars and cents, in terms of workers not being able to perform and not be paid. And so it's really having a bigger impact on us than what you understand. We would ask that, although a continuance can happen, we would ask that the decision be rendered. If it's for an approval, we will still continuously work with with saving that one tree. If there's a possibility, it doesn't preclude us from not doing so. That's what our goal is. But to not render decision really places us in a very difficult position.
Thank you. I would, it sounded like President Garcia, you were headed towards some type of hybrid action today, moving forward with some type of status in terms of saving this one tree with BPW. I think that's what I would be in favor of. I think just continuing, only there's no guarantee that there's going to be the resolution that the neighborhood council wants or that the applicant wants. So I'm not sure. And if we do continue it fully for a week or two, I'd like to have some type of conversation around, if they're not successful, do we move forward? I mean, what are we looking in terms of action items if it's not 100% DWP agreeing to saving this tree or changing what they're requiring? We should have some type of answers so that Mr. Garrison at least has some visibility in what our expectations are one way or another. I think that would be helpful in terms of getting this project moving from 85% to 100%.
Correct. It's just a reminder, again, by providing today's permit to move forward does not specifically say that they cannot save the one tree. As a matter of fact, if you would be able to save it, it would even be a better gain for everyone, obviously, Mr. Garrison. So action items, independent of whether DWP can move this, which we would be very happy about if that happened, it doesn't change today's decision if we move it forward. We can still move forward with the 3 that are definitely, one is in the middle of a driveway that is going to be constructed. The second, once it's constructed, we cannot save the other one because the concrete would align really closely and be adjacent to the tree roots. Am I correct about that, Mr. Banuelos, the second tree. And the third tree is an impact by street lighting, and so that they need to move forward with that piece as well. What I would recommend then, if you know, we're very, we want to hear what the nature of the fourth tree would be. Mr. Garrison and Mr. Banuelos, if, you know, after today's meeting and once the Department of Water and Power has its meeting with the neighborhood councils, we can get an update of what was the solution for that. You know, in the past hearings, I just want to make this clear that in the past two hearings before we granted some extensions to the request of neighborhood councils, commissioners, and so forth, the conversation of having a meeting with the Department of Water and Power was never brought up. The conversation was that we wanted the developer to have and meet with the two neighborhood councils. And just for clarity, the property is in the Pico Union Neighborhood Council, which technically that's the one that we strongly encourage that you work with. And the Wilshire Koreatown, we recommended, and we also encourage for you to work with, because your whoever lives in your 126 mixed-use commercial property will engage and be part of the Wilshire neighborhood community as well. Just because it's in a very like a fine line of where the two neighborhood councils meet. So technically, you've done more than what you know basically we request. And as you saw in the previous case before this case, we were able to come to a compromise. The community came to a compromise, and at the end of the day, everybody feels like, you know, including the developers as part of the solution. We recommend that as well, but it is not part of our legal parameters to grant that. What we are here to do is really grant the permit to move for the 4 impacted trees that would be really that's really halting for you to get to 100%. And it doesn't help anybody, the city or your workers or the constituents or anyone that the project is kind of on halt. So commissioners, it's really our discretion to move this forward with the recommendation. Given that Department of Water and Power has already submitted an official statement of what they need to do. Unless that changes this afternoon, then Mr. Garrison, we would recommend that you would adhere to whatever change Department of Water and Power can do to save the one last tree. However, do we get your verbal agreement on that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much. However, I would still recommend that we move forward with the trees for giving the permission of removing the 4 trees with the condition that we will hear the fourth, the last tree based on today's 2 p.m. meeting. Commissioner Davis, you have a question?
No, I just have a comment. I wanted to thank everybody who's been working on this, at least for presenting to us the opportunity in which to save a tree. I'm curious, though, in terms of this discussion about this problem, what role did urban forestry play in the discussion, the planning, or the interaction or collaboration in this particular case?
We've been communicating off and on with Mr. Milan and the applicants all throughout the process. We're always asking for documentation, as was provided in number 9, as to why a particular tree needs to be removed for whatever the improvements may be. This case was a transformer from Water and Power.
Right.
Yes, we did receive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Did Rachel have any interaction in our discussion on this issue?
We always brief Rachel on all of our permit requests prior to being presented to board to discuss all of the matters and discuss any alternatives that may be feasible for any construction project and creating the need to remove trees.
And Dr. Rachel's on the line. If you want to hear from her, she's here.
Yes, I would love to.
Dr. Campos, can we make Rachel a panelist, please?
Absolutely, I'm doing that just now.
Thank you.
Ms. Malloridge, you should receive an invitation to join us as a panelist. Once you do, just go ahead and accept that and turn on your video cam for us. There you are. Thank you.
Hi, Mrs. Malloridge. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great. I had a brief question. You and I have been talking about your involvement in the discussion about trees and saving them. And so I asked the question, to what degree had there been a collaboration or discussion with you in this particular matter, where it has an issue been raised that there's a possibility with the consulting of DWP that a tree could possibly or potentially be saved. So I just asked, in terms of your discussion on the problem, your analysis on the problem, and your involvement on it, where are you on this?
Yes, thank you. Urban Forestry Division has been the lead on this project and has worked closely with the Neighborhood Council and the applicant. I have been in discussions with Urban Forestry Division. In my understanding, again, we've got some trees that are under overhead power lines that are not ideal to be left in place. And then we have this issue of the transformer, which, again, I think UFD has a better consideration of the potential impacts to that tree. And Hector, correct me, I'm familiar with the case, but the transformer and the driveway are two separate issues, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, all right. So if there is flexibility on the transformer from the DWP side, that is excellent news to me. I have been working with UFD and with the Bureau of Engineering to talk about how we approach transformers over, all city cases. This one was very far along again in the process when I first saw it. They'd already constructed quite a bit of the facilities. And so it seemed at that time, per our discussion, that the conversation on the transformer was not something that could be negotiated at this point. So that is something I think that is new as of this week, at least as to my hearing. But that's been my involvement in the conversation thus far.
Well, I'd like to see you continuously involved in this whole discussion, because I'm of the belief that 4 and 5 heads are better than 2 and 1. So we've been talking about the possibility of a collaboration with all of the resources we have available, which includes your office. So I'd like to make sure that you're continuously involved, particularly in complex cases like this, number one. And number two, when developments occur after our discussion, I hope that we will come back to you and bring you into the rethinking that has to go on in a case, equally as we initially discussed with you what's going on the case initially. So thank you so much for your feedback on that. And Madam President, as we move forward, I just wanted to thank the team for discussing with us the potential to save a tree. We very rarely get an opportunity to discuss this in this manner, and so it's refreshing to have the possibility before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis, and thank you, Ms. Malloridge, for coming on the line. We always appreciate your advice on this, and basically we know that you are very much about saving trees, and so is this entire board, and so is the Urban Forest Division. There is not anybody that wants to get rid of a tree just because. Our reasons are very good when we do approve something like that. They're unhealthy, they're not good for the community, the sidewalk repair. There's many reasons that are why we need to approve and why we do approve tree removals, and it doesn't go easy. It goes through a lot of layers of conversations, and I'm just kind of making it clear to everyone how this happens. It goes through many, many layers, and we can have a discussion over one tree with many, many different departments, because one tree is as important as many trees. So I know that that's the school that you come from, Ms. Malloridge. So when I hear you say that some trees are not in the right driveway, in the right place, in the right center, it makes an impact on our decision, because we understand that importance of keeping the entire public safe as a priority.
President Garcia, if I may, just two quick observations. We are looking at how we have the opportunity to review cases before some of those decisions are made on a project's configuration. We know that that's still an outstanding issue, and UFD has been working very closely, Urban Forestry Division has been working very closely with myself and others to catch those earlier in the process and make it clear that the tree should be preserved before additional construction activities. And I'll just also add that part of the reason you don't get to deliberate about saving a tree very often is that the UFD team does such a fantastic job of doing those negotiations. So a number of trees don't come before your board because they've worked hard with the applicant to resolve it before a tree removal request comes to you all.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mallard. Ms. Mallard, just for the record, can you state your title?
Of course, Rachel Mallard, City Forest Officer.
Thank you very much. Okay, colleagues, any other questions? Anything you might want to bring up? Doesn't sound okay. Mr. Garrison, I'm ready to move this item forward, and I understand our neighborhood councils are both here, and I just want to say to both of you, thank you so much. With the board's preview, we've done what we need to do as in a legal manner and what's in our oversight, the best that we can, and that we have followed every legal parameter that is imposed on us as commissioners. And Mr. Jordan can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but since he's not interrupting me, I take it we're good on that piece of it. But Mr. Garrison, I understand there's a 2 p.m. meeting today that hopefully and maybe the Department of Water and Power might have a different solution. We don't know that until after this meeting, and so I would just ask that if whatever they do recommend, and if it does save that one last tree, for you to please take that into consideration and adopt that as your plan. Great. We all saw it. You have about 15 witnesses. Okay, that's 4 commissioners plus a city attorney, an executive officer, and our chief forest officer. That just heard. I just thought you say you would agree to that one. The other 3, unfortunately, are in a very impactful situation that must be. They must be removed, unfortunately. And like Ms. Mallard said, we are working really hard on getting ahead of this at all projects throughout the city, and so that we're not in a situation, not like this one, but just in general, we're kind of saving more trees. And yes, I agree. It's never our intent to get rid of trees. It's always our intent to save trees. That's the position of the board. So I'm ready to put a motion forward to move this item.
Second.
Thank you, Vice President.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Dr. Campos, there's a first by me and a second by Vice President Villegas and a second by Dr. Davis to move item number 2 forward and forthwith.
Great, we'll go ahead and start with the voting tabulations, and we'll start with you, President Garcia.
Aye.
Vice President Villegas.
Aye.
President Pro Tem Davis.
Davis, aye.
And Commissioner Corzan.
Aye.
This motion is adopted and carries unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate the work that the Neighborhood Council has provided, and I hope that the agreement with KYCC gets worked out as well, Mr. Garrison. Again, it's not something that we can put as legally as a condition, but it is something that we strive as a department and a board that all parties involved work collaboratively for the betterment of that community.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much.
Great. Thank you very much. I say 1 minute, Mr. Jordan.
Yes, and Commissioner, I'm sorry, and I apologize if I wasn't listening closely enough, but was that approval forthwith or not forthwith?
Yes, forthwith.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Dr. Campos, that I missed?
Nope, that is it.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of the weekend, and we hope to hear the update from your 2 p.m. meeting sometime in the next coming days. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Garrison, Mr. Bañuelos, Mr. Randa, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues, that takes us out of all of our voting items, and we are now in our oral report section. This is item number 6, and give me a second, I have to find it since I have a lot of paperwork here. This is item number 6, a status update on major upcoming street improvement projects by the Bureau of Street Services. And who do we have here today?
We have Mr. George Watson on the line.
Okay, Mr. Watson, are you ready?
Mr. Watson, if you can just turn on your video cam, I can go ahead and spotlight you for the board and the general public as well. There you go. Thank you.
There you go.
Hey, Mr. Watson, how are you?
Pretty good, and yourself?
Good, good. Good to see you. Good to see you in that fancy car. Just
I think
kidding.
I have an echo here. Let me see what's going on here.
You sound good to us. So.
Okay, there we go. I can hear you now. All right.
Okay.
So again, good afternoon, President Garcia, commissioners, city attorney, executive officers. My name is George Watson, Superintendent for Streets LA. This information is being provided to keep the public informed on the upcoming resurfacing project and to minimize the impact on the community as well as delays to the commuters. Streets LA would like to provide you with an update on all major upcoming streets improvement projects. On Saturday, April 16, 2022, and Sunday, April 17, 2022, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., the Valley region will cold mill surface prep and pave Ventura Boulevard from Winnetka Avenue to Premier Hills Road, Council District 3, Woodland Hills, Warner Center Neighborhood Council, Pavement Preservation Program. Additionally, we will provide an update on 21-22 Pavement Preservation Program. During the week of April the 10th, 2022 through April 16th, 2022, the Metro and Valley region will complete 17 projects for a total of 13.64 lane miles. The press release were broadcasted, the notification has been issued, Streets LA has coordinated with the council district offices to assist with the outreach to stakeholders, and we have coordinated with Los Angeles Department of Transportation for traffic control assistance. This information is available for Streets LA website, www.streetsla@lacity.org. For additional information or concerns, you can contact Sherrod Nichols at 213-847-3200. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. You might want to put me on mute. Okay, great. Dr. Davis.
Yes, Superintendent Watson, I wanted to ask you about the second part of your report when you talked about the work that's going to be done from the 10th to the 16th. I guess you said 13.6 lane miles. What area of the city or council districts would be involved in that? Are those also in the valley, or are they in various council districts?
It's various council districts. So part of the work, I would say like 7.6 lane miles will be in the metro area, and then another 8 points will be in the valley area. So
now, are the materials that we're utilizing in the work from the 10th through the 16th, are these cool mile applications that we're putting down in that area, or just repairs in general, or a combination of the two?
It's just repairs in general.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Davis. Any other questions to Mr. Watson? No. Sounds good. All right, Mr. Watson, have a good rest of the weekend. We appreciate your report and looking good there and sharp on a Friday morning.
We try. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good rest of the weekend.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
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 All right, colleagues. Dr. Campos, I still see a hand up. I imagine that was just left there from previous items.
I believe so. I can double check that audio line. I believe it's Elizabeth from the Wilshire Center Koreatown Neighborhood Council. Would you like me to open up the lines?
I mean, that item has already been closed, unless there's anything else we need to add.
Yes, items 2 and 4 have been closed already.
Okay, I imagine it's also, yeah, okay, she lowered her hand. Okay, I don't see anybody else with their hands up at all. Okay, Dr. Campos, have we cleared today's agenda items for the board?
Yes, you have.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. Thank you and everybody else that was today on the line. Mr. Jordan, thank you as well, and yourself, Mr. Dr. Campos. And this meeting has now officially ended, and we are adjourned for today. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll have a 5-minute break and then a short management meeting. All right, see you guys in a few minutes. Bye-bye.